When was a time where you just didn't feel like you were man enough?
I'd probably say my whole life. Like it feels like such a real thing, because when I was growing up as a young boy, I was overweight and I was one of the few ethnic minorities in my area. And so I was bullied at primary school, and I'd always be picked on or the mick taken out of, whether it was racism or whether it was about my weight or body image and all of those kind of issues. And I actually didn't take it that personally, because I'd go home and my mom loved me a lot.
Oh.
And so I feel like I was literally raised by my mom, and that's one of the reasons why I never felt man enough, because my mother was the most involved parent. My dad was very much aloof, let me make my decisions, failures, choices. But my mother was always there. My mother taught me how to shave my face. She taught me my skincare routine. She taught, like, my mother was like the first person to teach me a lot of what people's dads usually teach them. And that wasn't because my dad was a bad father, it's just that was his style. And we have a great friendship now. But with my mom, she was the one involved. So I never felt man enough because I didn't have a man teaching me man things, or however you want to put it. I was always surrounded by my mother, my sister, and powerful women in my life. And I wasn't really exposed to alpha males or any of those figures.
So how's that manifest? Like, did people call you mama's boy? Did they call you names?
Yeah, all of it. I remember when someone would pick on me at school, I'd go tell my mom, then my mom would come to school to be like, why are you treating my son like this? And that's like the worst nightmare for a kid, right? It's like everyone in the school is like, oh gosh, look, it's Jay's mom again. And my mom can be pretty protective of me, especially when I was younger. And so she'd get right in there with the headmistress's office or the dean's office and just be like, can't have this happen. And then everyone would find out, and then everyone would laugh at you more. Oh. And so I think it ended up, I actually think it just made me more of who I am today. But when I went to high school, I started to crave more male attention. So going from that, I then went to an all-boys school.
Oh, wow.
So I went to an all-boys school from the age of 11 to 18. And at that point, you have no one else's validation or recognition to get apart from other boys.
Right.
Now I want to fit in.
Did you seek or crave that attention?
Absolutely. That's when I was like, oh, now I want to be seen as strong, and I want to be seen as cool, and I want to be seen as the guy, and I want to be seen as this and that. And so I think that manifested in being quite competitive. And so I wanted to get a spot on the school's rugby team. I wanted to get a spot on the school's swimming team. I wanted to get a spot on the school's...
Did you play rugby?
I did. I think a big part of it was that masculine feeling that it gave me. And so I think it manifested in insecurities at high school. So as I got older, I actually think between 14 to 18, it manifested as insecurities of seeking validation and recognition for that which was not me. So I wasn't looking to be loved because I was empathetic and compassionate and kind, which is how my mom raised me. I was looking to be liked because I was bold and courageous and strong and physical and competitive. And so you almost start looking for validation for the things that you're not.
So you were performing.
Absolutely.
Every day.
Absolutely.
Masculinity feels like it's a total dance, right? It's a total choreography, and you're kind of watching other men like do it, right? Like even the handshake, like how am I supposed to like do the hug, then the pull, then the
then the what? Show us one more time.
There's like a pull, there's a tap sometimes,
the bro
double
hug.
tap.
No, it's the bro hug.
Yeah, there's a lot of different, it's very funny, not funny, but it can be entertaining as a woman to just kind of watch that and be like, I'm so happy I don't have to figure that out. But I want to come back to your point about service, which you really opened up our conversation with. I feel like we overemphasize service for women, right? That you are at the service of the people around you, and that's your value in the world. And we kind of underemphasize service for men. And it seems like for you, finding service as purpose was really a very meaningful part of your identity. I'm wondering how you see us being able to make that connection. What does service look like for men, and how is it tied to masculinity?
Yeah, I saw my mother's sacrifice growing up. So my mother was raising me and my sister deeply with love. I've always felt loved by my mother. And then she would also have her own business. So I didn't know she was an entrepreneur, but she was an entrepreneur, which was so weird because she never made herself out to be an entrepreneur. And so she had her own business. She started it so that she could work more flexibly. And she was taking care of my sister. She'd drop us to school. She'd pick us up. She'd make us dinner. She'd be working as well. And at one point became the main breadwinner in the family as well. And so I saw my mom serve or sacrifice in this way. And so I feel like I got trained by watching her and observing her. And then when I met the monks, the predominant monks that I lived with were all men, and service was at the core of their entire being. So our teachers would always tell us that the only way a culture succeeds is if everyone wants to serve everyone else. And so that was like the encouragement of that culture. And that's where it became so real to me. And for me, service and masculinity go hand in hand, but service and humanity go hand in hand. And I think it's slightly veering off from where we are, but I think it's an important point to make is when I lived as a monk, we stopped identifying as men and women. And we were asked to identify as consciousness. And that distinction and difference just kind of created this huge like weight off my shoulders, because now it's like, oh, I'm not masculine or feminine, or I'm not this or that. You
just are.
I'm just consciousness. I'm a human. I'm a soul. I'm whatever you want to call it. I'm energy. And that energy is wired for service. And so the energy inside each of us at this table is wired for service. So the way it connects is that we've been designed to serve, but unfortunately, and I've heard that a lot from women, is that often it turns into being a martyr or going to the point of self-sacrifice and self-sabotage because of how it's encouraged more. And I was speaking at this event, and a man came up to me. He was probably in his 40s. And I had just told a story about how when I met the monks at 18, they shifted my perspective to service. And he said to me, he goes, "You're so lucky that you got that at 18. I was like, yeah, I know, trust me. Like, I'm so grateful to my teachers. He goes, no, really. He goes, I only realized that someone else mattered when I had a child. And he was like, that was the first time I realized that someone apart from me mattered. And you know, he was obviously being really vulnerable, and I appreciated him sharing that, and I met it with compassion. But I think that's the case, that for a lot of men, I don't think we're trained early on in our life to realize that not just do our kids matter or our partners matter, but everyone matters and more people matter.
Or you're rewarded if you don't, right?
Yes.
Like on the rugby team, you know, sort of the culture you're describing, where you get rewarded if you are individualistic, competitive, and, you know, have this kind of attitude. And again, for women, it's the opposite. We get heavily punished when we take on those characteristics.
That's true.
Yeah, but that ungendering is so interesting, right? That happened, and that surplus of energy that you felt is something that we could all access, right? If we weren't weighed down by these gender stereotypes.
It's like the freedom, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying that you had sight, you had knowledge growing up by your mother, and you kind of held that to yourself.
I gave it up because I saw it as less than. So it's not even that I held it back. I gave it up and substituted it.
You traded it in for your man card.
Correct, for this toxicity, which then obviously encouraged more people to go down that path. And then I think the best thing I've done to try and remove that is when I became a monk, I became the mentor to a lot of young men in London. And those young men are still involved in my life. So I've known them since they were like 16 to 18 years old. They're all like 26 to 28 years old now. And so I feel like those 25 guys, they know who they are. Like, those are like my favorite success story, because I just see them make amazing decisions with their partners, their careers. Like, most of them in relationships now, and I see the husbands and the fathers they're becoming. And I mean, it's you know, many of them become fathers before I am one, and it's just inspiring that they're also leading that way and showing me that people don't have to make as bad a mistakes or go as far as I did. Here are 3 signs you're struggling with a lack of purpose. Number 1, you feel pressure to know what you want to do with your life. Number 2, you've lost interest in your own life and feel disconnected. Number 3, you don't know what your skills are, or you feel you lack them. Hope is not lost. You can get through this. Having purpose and meaning in our lives helps guide us through the ups and downs and create structure in our day-to-day life. That's why I've partnered with Calm, the leading app for mental health and wellness. The app has a library with thousands of meditations, songs to help you relax and focus, and sleep stories to help you get a good night's rest. And now you can find the Daily J, a daily series where I'm sharing proven tools and techniques to improve your mindset and mental health in a matter of minutes.